Exciting times, you've got yourself a new bike, and whether you bought it from a shop or an online direct company, here are a few checks you need to do before you take out your pride and joy onto the trails for the first time. As you can see, my bike needs a little bit of assembling first, just the bars going into the stem, the seat post in, and the front wheel on, so I'll do that first. So step one is just to put some grease inside that seat tube. This is an aluminium bike and aluminium post, so grease is the way to do it. If you had a carbon fibre post or frame, then use some of that carbon fibre grip. I put it inside the seat tube rather than on the seat post because it's a little bit less messy as it slides down and in, rather than sort of scraping the grease up that seat post. I'm going to leave quite a bit showing because I'm going to use a bike stand to finish off building my bike. Just whilst you are assembling any parts on the bike, make sure there is grease in any threads. Luckily there's some in there already, so I literally just need to wind these bolts in. So for now, I'm just going to install the bars and give them a bit of torque on there, but I'm not going to go too crazy because once I've got everything in place, I'm going to take the bike off the stand to double check the bar roll, all my lever angles, that sort of thing. So I'm just going to tighten up slightly for now, not worry about it too much. Okay, just to install the front wheel. This bike has come with the brakes reversed, so in that American and Euro style, so the rear brake is on the left. So in the UK, we run them the other way around. Luckily, that's dead easy to do with these SRAM guide brakes. You literally flip them over and stick it on the other side. Bikes always tend to come without pedals, so pick your pedals of choice, flats or clips, and make sure you also put a bit of grease on those threads. So your new bike is in one piece. The first thing I'll now do is read and then remove these warning notes all over the bike. So the first one, this is the fork. Before the first ride, please check the suspension fork pressure, which we're going to do in a second. We'll do the fork and shock pressure. There's one down on the axle to make sure you've got that in and it's vertical. So yeah, get rid of that as well. Coming to the back of the bike, there's one on that rear brake, basically telling you that they are self-adjusting brakes. So what you need to do when both the wheels are in and the discs are inside the calipers, just give those brakes a couple of pumps and they're going to sort of push the pistons out to make sure they're working properly first time you ride the bike. Once you've pumped your brakes, you might need to then recenter your caliper. We have done a whole video on that, but basically undo your bolts, and then I like to do it by sight so I can see down the disc, and I'm trying to equally space those pads so that I can see a little gap either side between the pads and that disc. If you've got a really nice quiet garage or workshop, give it a spin and just listen out, and you shouldn't be able to hear that disc touch those brake pads. The rear one is absolutely fine, so I'm just going to make sure those caliper bolts are nice and tight. Hopefully when your bike was built, things have been checked already, but the one thing I really will make sure that is right is the limit screws on the rear mech, because it can do a lot of damage if they're not set right. So first part of that is to make sure the mech is nice and tight into the hanger, and then go through and actually shift your gears to make sure the mech doesn't move too far in either direction. So brand new chains come with this really sticky lube from the factory on there. And that's down to personal preference. A lot of people like that lube and they'll leave it on there. Personally, I actually degrease that brand new chain because it's really sticky. I don't really like that. Where I ride, all the mud sticks to that and the sand, and it'll really wear that chain out. So actually, I take the degreaser to a brand new chain, get rid of that sticky stuff, and then reapply it with my favourite lube. Tyres are such a personal preference thing that often new bikes don't come with the tyres that you want on them. So now's the time to switch to your favourite tyres, and also most new bikes don't come set up tubeless. Most of them come with tubes. So also now convert to tubeless if you want to. That also gives you 2 spare tubes. We've got a full video on how to convert to tubeless. If you don't know how to do that, follow the link in the description down below. On a full suspension bike, it's really worth checking that all the pivot bearings are greased up from new. They really should be, but an easy way of doing that is just to remove one of those pivot bolts. So wind it out and just have a quick look inside there. As you can see, that is really nice and clean, and also you can see signs of grease around there, so great. I'll put that back in and just make sure it's torqued up to the correct torque settings, which this bolt actually says on it 17 Newton meters. That moves me on nicely to actually giving the full bike a bolt check. So you will have to undo some of the bolts again to set up your bars and levers and things like that, but you definitely want to give your bike a full bolt check before you take the bike off the stand and start sitting on it, because if anything's loose, like the seat post, you could do some damage to it. So if you've got a torque meter, then great. If not, just go around with your normal Allen keys and just try and make sure everything's tight. Okay, so we're almost there. I'm just going to go around the frame and remove any little sort of protection film that was on there to stop it from getting damaged whilst it was in transport. Now, I'm going to take the bike out the stand. Okay, so now we're moving more into the realms of trying to get the bike set up for you to ride. I'm just going to get that saddle height set right, so dropping my seat post down and in, popping it up. Whilst I'm doing that, I've got an internally routed drop seat post here, so I'm just trying to make sure that cable is not getting pinched or anything, and I'm going to try and set my saddle height. Right, next step is to try and set the sag on my suspension. Again, we've done a full video on this if you don't know how to do it. I'm looking for about 30% sag on the rear and about 20 to 25 on the front. And also bear in mind that once you've set it initially, your bike will bed in a little bit after a couple of rides. So everything will loosen up slightly. So it's definitely worth rechecking your sag after the first and probably the third ride. Right, now I like to double check that my axles are tight before I get on the bike. Everything's sorted, and I'm gonna hop on and now set up my bars and controls. So the first thing I do is actually set my bars, so I'm gonna roll them. I like it so the rise on these bars goes directly up, so that looks about right to me. And make sure they're centered in the stem. Torque those back up. Make sure you do one bolt at a time, or sort of alternate the two so you don't get one over tight. Now I'm going to double check that my stem is nice and straight. The way I like to do that is actually look down the back of the handlebars and try and line them up with the crown of the fork. So I'm going to undo that first and then just shimmy that stem around a little bit. It's not far off actually, but just a touch that way. Looks good to me, so torque that back up. Next is the grips. These are asymmetric ergon ones, so again I'm going to try and get that angle so it's most comfortable, and then tighten that up. Do that on both sides obviously, and make sure they're nice and torqued down to the bar so they don't slide around. Next to the brake levers, so I'll make sure they're equally spaced away from my grip on each side. You can do that with a tape measure if you wish. I try and do that with sort of using my fingers to space it out. It's about right. Get the angle, so I try and look for that angle that's kind of relatively high on the bar but nice and comfortable when I'm stood up. That looks about right to me. So then I'll match my rear brake lever, but also I'll do my reach. So I like to run my levers quite close to the bar. So just need to turn this little dial here. Again, I've done 5 clicks on the right lever, so I need to do 5 on the left. Okay, just a couple more steps, then you're ready to ride. I will now look at my brake hoses and shorten them if they need to. Same with your gear cables to make sure that's all really nice and clean. I don't have to on this bike, fortunately. Everything's nice and tidy. And also try and protect your frame. Here we've got some sort of clear stickers on there just to stop any cable rub. Also, you've got these little things just to tie your cables together, make it look really nice and neat. And hopefully keep this frame looking nice and new. One final thing to think about is actually making a chainstay protector for that bike. I've already got one built in on this Canyon Spectral, but a full wrap would just protect the bottom of it as well. I'm a little bit paranoid as well, so I would now give it one last full bolt check to make sure everything's nice and tight before I ride it on the trail. If you want to see more videos from GMBN, click on the logo to subscribe. Click down there for how to make a homemade chainstay protector, and over there to make a homemade front mudguard. Give us a thumbs up if you like this video.